Let's be honest. What we're about to discuss goes against everything we've been taught since childhood by kind books, Hollywood rom-coms, and advice from older female relatives. We've always been indoctrinated with the idea that true love is constant, uninterrupted closeness, that care must be expressed through second-by-second presence, and that the ideal husband is someone who is always there, always in touch, and ready to yield in any argument just to keep the peace at home. But the harsh, biologically driven reality of relationships works completely differently. Unfortunately, many decent men learn this too late, when their marriage is already bursting at the seams. When you make the willful decision to distance yourself slightly from your wife, it might seem like cold calculation or even cruelty, but in reality, it is the only healthy attempt to restore the natural balance that was destroyed by years of your excessive, suffocating availability. I remember a guy I knew, let's call him Mike, who turned his life into servitude to his wife. He is the classic nice guy who gives flowers for no reason, texts his wife 50 times a day asking "How are you?", asks for permission to go to a BBQ with friends, and cancels any of his own plans if his wife is simply in a bad mood. And what does he get in return for this sacrifice? Respect? Passion? Gratitude? No. He sees eye rolling. He has irritated one-word answers and feels her slowly but surely pulling away, as if his presence is a burden to her. Mike genuinely doesn't understand why his love triggers repulsion, because he's doing everything right, but he doesn't know that he has violated a fundamental law of human nature. We stop valuing what we receive in unlimited quantities without any effort. She essentially loses the ability to respect him because she doesn't see a man with a backbone. She sees a predictable utility function running in the background. To her, he has become an open book with no intriguing pages left, and this boring plot kills all desire. Think about the air we breathe. It is vitally necessary. Without it, we would die in minutes. Yet, we never think about it with gratitude. We don't write poems to it, and we don't fear losing it as long as it surrounds us in abundance. We only start to panic and value every breath when the air becomes critically scarce or when we are held underwater. The exact same thing happens to a man who becomes emotional background noise for a woman, familiar, comfortable, predictable, like an old sofa in the living room that is useful but excites absolutely no one. Most men live in mortal fear of stepping even an inch away from their partner, believing that distance will destroy their bond. But they fail to understand the paradox. It is precisely the lack of personal space, this sticky enmeshment, that slowly kills all attraction and interest. They forget a simple truth. Fire cannot burn without oxygen, and passion cannot exist without distance. By trying to be as close as possible, they literally suffocate the flame of love, leaving behind only the cold ashes of habit. When you finally decide to shift this toxic dynamic and stop being a convenient app in her life, a complex, painful, but absolutely predictable psychological mechanism is triggered. A woman, suddenly faced with your distancing, goes through 5 mandatory stages. If you don't know about them in advance, you are almost guaranteed to break on the very first one. Terrified by her reaction, you want to know when she'll start missing you? Don't expect it tomorrow or the day after. Her brain, accustomed to your omnipresence, needs time to flip the switch from "he's not going anywhere" to panic mode, "I might actually lose him." This is a deep biological recalibration, similar to withdrawing from sugar, and it requires the kind of iron patience that modern men so often lack. The first phase you will encounter is not sadness or romantic longing, as many naively hope. It is outrage and anger. Imagine a specific scenario. Every morning you brought her coffee in bed and listened to her recount her dreams for half an hour, even if you were late for the office. But today, you simply got up, drank your coffee silently in the kitchen, kissed her on the cheek, and left for business. Or previously, you answered her texts within 30 seconds, dropping important negotiations, but now you reply 3 hours later, calmly, briefly, and to the point. What is happening in her head at this moment? She is in shock from the loss of control. She is used to holding an invisible remote control for your attention and mood, and suddenly the buttons stopped working, and the signal is gone. To her, this looks like a system failure, a breach of an unspoken contract where you agreed to be an eternally available resource. At this moment, she isn't thinking about loving you. She is thinking exclusively about restoring her power and comfort. One of my clients told me how his wife, who had been cold as ice and avoiding intimacy for months, threw a massive tantrum simply because he decided to go to the gym on a Friday night instead of sitting next to her on the couch watching a show on Netflix that she didn't even like that much. It wasn't about the show or the gym. It was a desperate attempt to check if her veto power over your life still worked. Complaints of various calibers will begin. You've become callous. You don't care about me. We've become strangers. You're destroying the family. Many men break at this moment because they are conditioned to avoid conflict at all costs. They think their strategy has failed. They get scared of her aggression, and they run to apologize with a bouquet of roses, returning to the same swamp. They mistakenly believe that immediate peacekeeping is the same as building a relationship, not realizing they are digging their own grave. But this is a fatal error that resets everything to zero. Understand one simple thing. Her anger right now is a good sign. It is an indicator that you have ceased to be invisible and have struck a nerve. Believe me, true indifference is always cold and silent. This fire of emotions proves there is still plenty of energy in your relationship. If you surrender now, you confirm her worst suspicion. You are weak, and you can be controlled by a raised voice and a pout. But if you remain calm, do not scream back, do not make excuses or attack, but firmly and kindly say, I haven't become callous. I'm just busy with things. I have plans. Let's talk later. Her anger will inevitably burn out, like fuel that is no longer being replenished. Then comes the second phase, the stage of doubt and silence. This is perhaps the hardest time for a man, because he feels like he is being ignored. When she realizes that manipulation, tears, and shouting no longer work, a vacuum ensues. The house becomes unusually quiet. Previously, you filled this silence with your endless questions, attempts to entertain her, and anxious gazing into her eyes seeking approval. Now you are silent, busy with your own affairs, reading a book, working on your laptop, or heading to a workout. You are no longer broadcasting every thought into the ether, and this sudden deficit of information makes you unpredictable and, consequently, interesting again. It is in this ringing silence that she starts hearing her own thoughts, and the vector of her attention shifts. Instead of accusations against you, she starts looking in the mirror and asking herself questions. Maybe I really went too far? Why has he changed so much? What happened? Maybe he has someone else who appreciates him more. This uncertainty is a powerful aphrodisiac that awakens her dormant instincts, forcing her to look at you not as furniture, but as a man. In this phase, the true value of your presence begins to emerge because nature abhors a vacuum, and your absence creates that very deficit she will want to fill. Remember how we watch movies. If we are told the ending at the very beginning, we get bored. But if the plot holds a mystery, we can't tear ourselves away from the screen. You become that mystery again. She suddenly realizes she doesn't know everything about you anymore, and this information hunger makes her want to solve the riddle of your new behavior. But here is an important nuance that popular psychologists stay silent about. You need to clearly understand who is beside you, because this method is a litmus test. If your woman is deeply oriented toward family and attachment, she will start reflecting and looking for ways to reconnect. But there is a type of woman, let's call them emotional consumers, who live for likes on social media, the attention of the crowd, and an eternal party. These people are like a bucket with a hole in the bottom. No matter how much love and attention you pour in, it will never be enough to fill them. For a woman like our hypothetical Jessica from Instagram, your distancing is not a reason to reflect, but simply the disappearance of her usual feed. She won't think about your relationship. She will simply go looking for attention from colleagues, ex-boyfriends, or random acquaintances on the internet. Understanding this fact at an early stage will save you from senseless investments of your soul into a black hole that is physically incapable of giving warmth in return. And if this happens, don't be upset, be glad. Because distance saved you years of life by showing that the person next to you was never capable of deep attachment, and you were simply wasting your time. If, however, your relationship is still alive, the third stage begins the stage of careful reconnaissance, or pinging. She will start taking small, safe steps toward you to test the waters. This won't look like repentance. Honey, I was wrong, come back, I forgive everything. No. It will look like a random text in the middle of the workday. The Wi-Fi at home isn't working, do you know why? Or, send me that photo from our vacation in the mountains. Or she might suddenly send a funny video, even though she previously didn't reply to your links for weeks. Men very often make the starving dog mistake here. Imagine a stray dog that hasn't been fed for a week, and suddenly someone throws a dry bone, it pounces on it, wagging its tail and whining with happiness. Men do the same. Receiving this insignificant ping, they immediately break into a smile, write paragraphs of text in response, offer to pick her up from work, and are ready to serve again. By doing this, you instantly devalue the entire journey, showing her that your independence was just a cheap theatrical performance. She sees that you were actually just sitting in the bushes waiting for her whistle, and her respect for you drops even lower than it was before the experiment began. Don't do it. It's a test. She is feeling out the ground. Is he still mad? Is he ready to crawl back at the first call? To preserve progress and cement the result, react warmly, but with restraint and in doses. Help with the internet, but don't start a 1-hour discussion about providers. This healthy uncertainty is actually beneficial because it forces her to invest energy into regaining your favor rather than taking you for granted. React to the video with an emoji, but don't send 10 videos in response. You must create a feeling of warm uncertainty, where you seem to be there and you are kind, but you no longer belong to her wholly, and you have your own life. When she realizes that soft reconnaissance doesn't give her full control, she might unconsciously raise the stakes and move to the fourth phase, the provocation phase. This is the most difficult exam for your resilience and masculine frame. One friend of mine, who started setting boundaries properly, suddenly heard a story from his wife about how her new colleague drove her home, what a gallant man he was, and how jokingly he acted the whole way. This is a classic, crude provocation through jealousy. She isn't necessarily doing this out of malice or to cause pain. Her instincts are screaming for a need to verify if your new confidence is real, or just a fragile mask that will crack under the first pressure. She wants to see if you lose your composure, start shaking, screaming, and demanding explanations. If you make a scene of jealousy and start an interrogation, you lose, because she sees again that she controls your emotions like a puppet. By losing your cool in this moment, you are essentially handing her the remote control to your nervous system, proving that globally, nothing has changed in you. Another common variant of provocation is a sudden, sharp burst of sexuality. She might wear lingerie she hasn't worn in a year, walk in front of you, flirt, but at the last moment refuse or turn everything into a joke, citing a headache. This is a cruel but effective way for her to ensure you are no longer that desperate man ready to humiliate himself and beg for any crumb of intimacy. If you melt like ice cream on a hot sidewalk and start begging, you are back to square one. The secret to success here is Olympic calmness and unshakable confidence. You must be like a rock against which the waves of her chaotic emotions crash. Women are biologically programmed to seek safety in emotional stability, and when you show that her storms cannot shake your foundation, you become incredibly attractive. You don't react to stories about colleagues with aggression. You simply smile and change the topic, showing that it doesn't touch you because you are confident in yourself. And if you pass all these tests, real magic happens. The fifth phase arrives, the phase of genuine attraction. She begins to reach out to you for real, not to test or sting, but because she genuinely misses you. She starts to realize that your attention is a limited resource that has a high price, and she wants to be the only one who earns it again. She sees before her a man who has a backbone, boundaries, interests, and pride. Remember how you met years ago? Did you run after her like a puppy and hang on her every word back then? No, you were a mystery, a separate planet with its own orbit, and that is exactly what attracted her. Distancing returns this mystery and this allure. She might offer to cook your favorite dinner, buy baseball tickets, or suddenly ask if she can go with you to that gym that used to annoy her. But there is one main condition, without which no techniques will work. You cannot fake this. It is not a theatrical production. Women possess incredible intuition and can smell phoniness a mile away. You can't sit in your car in the driveway just waiting for time to pass to appear busy, hypnotizing the clock. You really must be busy. Your life must be filled with meaning without her. Let me give you an example of two men. Steve decided to act out distance. He simply remained demonstratively silent in the evenings, watched TV with an offended look, but internally waited for her reaction. Within a week, his wife figured out this cheap manipulation, which caused her only contempt and laughter. Steve radiated the heavy energy of waiting and resentment, which repels on a physical level, while the second hero radiated the vibration of life. David acted differently. He actually signed up for Spanish courses, started running in the mornings, and reconnected with old college buddies. He came home tired but charged, with burning eyes, with new emotions that he was in no hurry to share. This worked flawlessly because his focus shifted from his wife to his own growth and development. When you are truly engaged in your own life, you stop needing her constant, minute-by-minute approval like oxygen. When she sees that your happiness no longer depends entirely on her smile, she feels immense relief because a heavy burden of responsibility for your emotional state falls off her shoulders. You stop being a satellite orbiting her emotions and become the center of your own gravity. This is that notorious masculine charisma everyone talks about. A woman is biologically drawn to a man who knows where he is going, who has a mission, not to one who stands still waiting for instructions on how to live. Of course, the thought scares many. What if I distance myself and we become complete strangers? Yes, there is such a risk, and it is foolish to deny it. If nothing alive remains in the foundation of your marriage except the mortgage and the kids, if there is only rot, contempt, and habit, then distance will ruthlessly expose this, and the house of cards will collapse. But even in this case, you win, because it is better to face the bitter truth face to face now than to spend decades on senseless attempts to resuscitate something that died long ago. But ask yourself an honest question. Do you want to live in an illusion of closeness, constantly humiliating yourself, or are you ready to learn the truth and start a new life? In 90% of cases, if there was once a spark and love between you, distance blows the dust off feelings and rekindles the fire. You will be surprised how quickly the atmosphere in the house changes when the sticky pressure disappears and the fresh air of freedom and mutual interest appears. This is not a one-time action or a pill you can take once. You can't be a man for a month and then relax, exhale, and become a convenient doormat again. It's like training in the gym. You can't build muscle once and for all. You have to maintain your form constantly, otherwise you will become weak again. This is a change in the entire philosophy of your life. It is a transition from a state of pathetic need, I can't live without you, I'll be lost, to a state of strong conscious choice, I can live without you. I am self-sufficient, but I choose to be with you because you are dear to me. It is this inner freedom that makes you a truly reliable partner, because now she knows you are with her not out of hopelessness and fear of loneliness, but out of great love. Any woman feels this difference on a deep, subconscious level, and she reacts to it with respect and attraction. Ultimately, distancing from your wife is, in essence, a path of returning to yourself, to your masculine core. You restore your personality, your boundaries, your self-respect, which may have dissolved in domestic life and routine. And when you find yourself, you become a gift to her that must be cherished and feared to be lost, not a guaranteed property that can be thrown into a far corner. Be prepared for it to be difficult, for you to have to fight your fears and habits. Be prepared for emotional swings and tests. But no, the only way to build a strong and happy union is to be two full-fledged individuals standing firmly on their own feet, not two cripples leaning on each other out of powerlessness. What you heard today is just the tip of the iceberg. The human psyche works according to hidden laws, and ignorance of these laws costs us our happiness. If you are ready to dive deeper and see the essence of things, not just the beautiful wrapper, welcome to the channel Psycheria. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Believe me, we have a lot to discuss. See you there.